Let's dive right into this explainer because we are starting with an incredibly urgent, incredibly public warning regarding one of Zimbabwe's absolute largest privately held property portfolios. We are looking at a deeply complex, incredibly high-stakes situation today. Honestly, this has completely spilled out of the family boardrooms and straight into the public eye. Now, if you've been following property developments in Zimbabwe, you might think you know the landscape, right? But the story behind the Pfugari Estate, well, it's a fascinating case study in legacy, fierce legal battles, and the profound complications that come with inheritance. We are literally thrown right into the middle of this high-stakes conflict with a direct quote from Naume Makumbe, who is one of the heirs to the estate. Look at what she's saying here. She's issuing a stark, very public warning to potential real estate investors, basically flashing a giant red flag about massive legal risks. She is explicitly stating that any sales currently happening are flat out illegal because the estate just hasn't been finalized yet. So, this isn't just a private family disagreement anymore. It's a very public caution that could seriously impact anyone looking to invest their money in these properties. To really understand the sheer scale of this dispute, we have to talk numbers. We are looking at a real estate empire valued at a staggering $48 million US. We aren't just talking about a few houses here. This is a massive, vast portfolio that has accumulated over decades. And when you have $48 million locked up in an unresolved legal battle, the ripple effects are enormous. It doesn't just affect the family at the center of it, it shakes up the broader commercial real estate market in the entire region.
Section 1, the $48 million empire.
Now, a massive legacy like this definitely wasn't built overnight. It was meticulously constructed over 6 decades by the late property mogul Edward Nyanyiwa Pfugari Snr, alongside his first wife, Mildred Nyanyiwa Pfugari. Just look at the assets they accumulated. We've got Whitecliffe Farm, the entire Knowe suburb situated in Norton, and huge commercial properties like the Beatrice Restaurant and Butchery right along the busy Harare-Masvingo Road. Plus, there are tracts of prime land scattered all across Norton and Harare. These are just empty plots of dirt. They are highly desirable commercial and residential hubs. This makes the undistributed estate an incredibly high-value target for development and resale, which, really explains why the fight for control right now is just so intense.
Section 2, the family divide. So how exactly did the heirs to a 60-year legacy become so fiercely divided? Well, according to Naume Makumbe, the original business structure was a true equal partnership. Her parents, Edward Sr. and Mildred, held a 50-50 share split in the businesses they built together. But that historical partnership is now starkly contrasted by what is allegedly happening today. Makumbe claims that her stepbrother, Edward Jr., has initiated a unilateral takeover of the family companies, basically completely sidelining the other children. It's a massive, massive shift from shared family equity to alleged singular control. Let's track how decades of family history culminated in the absolute gridlock we see today. Looking at this timeline, back in 1963, Edward Sr. and Mildred married and had 4 children: Stephen, Henrietta, Itai, and Naomi. Fast forward to 1997, and a major family event occurs. Edward Jr., who was actually formerly known as Bayiti Rendela, learned of his true origins and was warmly received into the family. Now, things get a bit more complex later, as Edward Sr. remarries twice after Mildred's death, leaving behind 2 surviving wives and a total of 5 children. Then, in 2019, the patriarch, Edward Sr., sadly passes away. And here we are today, more than 5 years later, and the estate remains entirely undistributed. Section 3, allegations of a takeover.
Okay, we need to cover some very specific, incredibly serious claims being made by Makumbe regarding her and her siblings' alleged exclusion. Now, it's absolutely crucial to note here that we are looking at this strictly through the lens of the allegations presented in the source material, as this is currently a highly, highly contested legal matter. She claims that Edward Jr. has not only excluded her, Stephen, Henrietta, and Itai from running the companies, but that attempts to even hold basic meetings have been met with severe pushback. She alleges they've been removed from the premises with threats of violence and even handcuffed and arrested by the police at his behest. Furthermore, she states that despite the High Court ruling in their favor, which expressly stated they shouldn't be denied access, he has continued to bar them. And finally, she alleges he authorized the destruction of buildings at Whitecliffe in his own personal capacity, totally without family consultation. It's also really important to mention that attempts by the publication to reach Edward Jr. and the current directors for comment on these serious allegations were entirely unsuccessful.
Section 4, the legal gridlock. With allegations this severe, and remember, $48 million on the line, the Zimbabwean legal system is aggressively attempting to untangle this whole dispute. Let's look at step 1. The High Court actually stepped in and removed the original executor of the estate, a Mr. Clever Mandisvitsa. This happened after Makumbe's legal representation brought forward allegations that the executor was actually working with Edward Jr. to dispose of assets and overcharging the estate. So, step 2, a new executor has since been appointed by the Master of the High Court. However, looking down at step 3, despite all this legal intervention, the actual distribution of the estate remains completely unresolved. Makumbe refers to it simply as a work in progress.
Now, why does this legal gridlock matter to you? Well, it matters immensely to the general public, and specifically to anyone operating in the Zimbabwean real estate market right now. Legal experts point out an absolutely vital fact here. Any buyer purchasing these properties right now is taking on a monumental risk. If a court later determines that these transactions were conducted without the proper, finalized authority of a fully distributed estate, well, those purchases can be entirely nullified. Literally, you could buy a piece of prime Norton land today and have the court completely void the sale tomorrow. It's a massive gamble.
Section 5, a fight for equity. Beyond the millions of dollars in the prime real estate, Makumbe is really elevating this from a standard family squabble over money to a highly principled fight about who gets to inherit wealth in modern society. This quote right here cuts right to the heart of her public argument. She is pointing out a historical and systemic issue where daughters are often sidelined in favor of male heirs when it comes to inheriting legacy businesses. By fighting for what she views as the rightful legacy of herself and her siblings, she is actively challenging those traditional dynamics. She's insisting that all children, regardless of gender, are equal beneficiaries to their parents' life work. So as this incredibly complex $48 million dispute remains totally locked before the courts and the Master of the High Court, it leaves us with a massive unanswered question. We have a fiercely divided family, severe allegations of exclusion, very real nullification risks for buyers, and a fundamental debate about gender equity in inheritance to top it all off. So how will this monumental legacy, built over 60 long years, finally be divided among the heirs? It's a fast-developing story with profound implications across the board, and it is definitely one that warrants keeping a very close eye on.